for the applause. That was exciting. Good afternoon, everybody. How's everyone doing today? Glad to see so many familiar faces and new faces as well coming out to our quarterly town hall. I'm Paul Corliss. I'm the Chief Communications Officer for the UNT system, and I will be doing the least amount of talking, hopefully, today. We'll be listening to our Chancellor, Lisa Rowe, and our Vice Chancellor for Facilities, Steve Marashevsky. And I want to say hi to each of you. Lisa, you are coming up pretty close to 2 years on the job. Give us a quick rundown on what feels good, where are you challenged, where are you excited?
Yeah, so it has been a very fast couple, well, not quite 2 years, but it's been exciting. In March, I reported out at one of these town halls the tremendous progress we had made in 2018 with growth. You know, we had record enrollment across our UNT world. We also had record research growth, record number of graduates, and also record philanthropy as well. So it's been pretty exciting. For FY19, we still see that growth trend. I don't have the numbers yet, obviously, because it's still early in the year, and I don't want to jinx anything because it seems to be going pretty well. But certainly we'll be sharing that in the fall at a town hall and what we achieved in our measures for 2019. But across our UNT world, we're transforming lives and creating economic opportunity. Each of our institutions, each of our presidents have just really exciting roadmaps, and they've got great strategies and they're working for it. So I recommend you all tune into their town halls, to their State of the Universities. We'll make sure we get those published so people know when those are happening, and you can hear some of that excitement as it goes. And of course, if you tuned into any of the board meetings, they're sharing it there too. So today we'll focus a little bit more on what's happening centrally and what's happening in some of our system activities.
And we'll take a deep dive with you here shortly, but wanted to introduce Steve, who is more of a new face around here. You're about on 6 months, Steve. We're still working on finding a green tie, but we'll get there. You came to us from Penn State about 6 months ago. Tell us your impressions of Texas and UNT world.
Sure. So it's actually only been just a little over 4 months. It just feels like 6 months.
Well, you get a little more leeway on the tie thing then.
Thank you. There's not a whole lot of difference between Pennsylvania and Texas. It's like,
Same temperature.
Actually, I left Pennsylvania at the end of January, and we were rushing out of town to beat a storm, and the fear was that we would be part of a large power outage. And lo and behold, I spent the last 2 days in Texas in the midst of a power outage.
So I feel for mine to come on.
Yeah, I know. Mine just came on yesterday. So I think I traded snow, sleet, and storms of that nature for wind, hail, and heat. Both leading to power outages. So similarities but differences. Personal side, I think we've settled in pretty well. We've been here just over 4 months, as I mentioned. And I recently went away to visit my grandkids in Colorado just for a weekend, and I found myself saying, "Are we ready to go home?" And I was referring to here. So I thought that was, it's kind of a big step. After being in Pennsylvania for such a long time, I'm now starting to call Texas home. So that transition is going very well. People have embraced us. We're really enjoying the folks here and the colleagues that we work with. From a professional standpoint, similar but different. I think facilities are thought of as being pretty much the same, and they are in a lot of ways, whether you're at Penn State or at UNT or any other place of higher education. Facilities challenges are very similar. The differences are the people and the culture that you have to adapt to and adjust to. So I think I left an institution that had a single brand, very strong, 24 locations geographically distributed throughout the state, and come here to a place that has 3 distinctly different universities with different missions, and that's a different challenge, and it's an exciting challenge. But it means my folks have to be multi-talented and be able to adapt in different ways to those challenges.
How has it been jumping right in and having to get some buildings completed in your first couple months on the job? Specifically, UNT Dallas opened a couple new buildings.
So fortunately, I have a very talented workforce. So let me say thank you to them, because it could have been scary. And there were some big challenges, but we pulled it off, right down to the wire in some cases, but it pulled off some major exciting achievements. So again, that's the part that's the same. That's the same here and anywhere else. Those are the kind of challenges you face in a facilities organization.
Well, we're excited to have you here with us.
Thank you.
We'll come back to you here in a little bit. We're going to start off, though, with the Chancellor. And Lisa, I'll be your clicker here. So let's pull up the org chart. We had some conversations recently about some personnel changes, and you have some searches going on. You have some new people on board. Give us an update on where things are personnel-wise.
Yeah, so we have had some recent changes with our CIO leaving and with our CFO leaving, and both have gone on. Rama and Gary have gone on to some exciting challenges in in public companies and in startup companies, and so we're excited for them. At the same time, we're moving on. That we're not going to miss a beat as far as the work that we have, the great initiatives that we have going, and so I've got a search underway. I expect to have selections made in August, and so moving quickly. Of course, I have the presidents helping me in that search, so we want to make sure that the folks that we pick are fully successful across our institutions, and so excited about that. We've put some great interim people in place. James Malden is our acting CFO right now, and he's just doing a great job. Charlotte Russell has stepped up and is our CIO, and she's doing a great job as well. So we're doing really, really well, and like I said, keeping our initiatives on, which you'll hear about today. We have our new Chief Compliance Officer that is at the system administration level and also at our UNT Dallas. So Tim Willett is wearing two hats and has come on board and has hit the ground running. You are going to love him. He's just great. If you haven't met him yet, he's very caring and really is focused on creating a culture of compliance and working so well with our other chief compliance officers in Denton and also at our Health Science Center in Fort Worth. So lots of things going on there. So again, if you haven't met Tim, get out and meet him as soon as you can.
Absolutely. Well, let's jump into the topics. The first one, it's been a very busy spring, not just for our normal activities, but the Texas legislature was in session. The 86th Texas legislature just wrapped up. I saw Jack Morton up in the back somewhere. Let's talk about how we did in Austin this year.
Yeah, so we had a great session. We really appreciated that we were recognized for our growth and our innovation across our UNT world. So that was pretty exciting. I just can't thank our legislators enough. They really pushed for us and really went to bat for us, and that was so important as well. We would not have the success we had without our great GR team. I know Jack's up there somewhere, Ray's maybe here somewhere, but just tremendous amount of work, and our board really going to bat for as well. Our Chairman Ryan was stressing how important our new initiatives were, so much during this session, and so we owe him a debt of gratitude as well. So like I said, we've had some great successes. We had formula supported across the board and have had growth in our formula funding that really does mirror our growth at our institutions, where we had UNT Dallas receiving, I think it's around $24 million in formula funding. 24% up in that, and so that's pretty exciting. For some of the other things that we received is the most special item funding that we have ever received across our UNT world. So, and that looks like our UNT Center for Agile and Additive Manufacturing, which is $10 million of that funding. Our UNT Health Science Center received funding for forensic genetics research program of $10 million and additional funding of $5 million to reduce the backlog of rape kit
It's really
evidence.
exciting to make a difference like that. That's
Yeah,
really an amazing
that's
program.
that's huge. So we got great support for that, and then Dallas, of course, received Student Success Initiative money of $2 million, and also 2.6 for the next 2 fiscal years for small institution funding. So, all in all, really, really good, and we're very thankful for all the people that really put in the work to get the support, and we're already lined up and getting ready for the next session, and really learning, doing kind of our after-action review and knowing what we should be doing as we go into the next session. So, so it's been a really good year.
And I asked you this question on our podcast last week, and I'll ask it for this audience. You did this a lot with the federal government, but this was your first time in Texas being a part of this process. And how different is it, or is it similar?
I think it's really similar. I mean, there's certainly different people, and but I think there's a lot of it felt very familiar as far as going in and explaining the initiatives, explaining our value and the return on investment that we bring, and so that is very familiar in what happens at the federal level, and so and it really takes a united effort to get the support that you need, and you need not only us all going up there, but all of stakeholders, our alumni. We had this great alumni day, that our first ever this session, and it was incredible. I mean, the gallery was green with all of our support, and so it takes that kind of thing. It takes industry, it takes students, it takes all of those folks really telling our legislators how important we are.
Yeah, that was special, seeing the pep band in the rotunda playing.
Yeah, it was great, and Scrappy was up there too, although Scrappy was not allowed in the House chamber, I don't think. So anyway, but and I should say the Dallas Regional Chamber, Fort Worth Chambers as well, all were writing letters of support, so all of that came through.
Excellent. Well, we just wrapped up a board meeting a couple weeks ago, and in that board meeting, you went through some key updates related to system administration. We're going to walk through those updates here. So this is where we kind of started, and then we'll get into the progress, but just to share with everybody where the purpose, vision, and goals are, and these were shared at the previous meeting.
That's right. So back in March, I did share our strategy and our vision and kind of how we're moving forward. So this is what we pushed here. That's showing on the screen. It's really around our purpose to lead, serve, and inspire, and with our vision of being recognized as a trusted partner of exceptional performance. Of course, our focus is really getting to be a best place to work, extraordinary service experience, best value, strong regional and corporate reputation, and have our management practices and tools promote success. So we've got goals around people, service, and strength, and I'll hit just a couple of those. I don't plan to go through all of this, but I just wanted to hit some progress around a couple of these areas. The areas of our initiatives on recruiting and developing talent and performance management for staff and administrators. And those two areas, one of the key things that we have done is really decide on a tool that we need, which is called People Admin, and we've brought that tool in. It's going to help us tremendously from in both of these key initiative areas. We're taking the time this fall to make sure that we've loaded the positions in, that we have people trained up on the tool, that we have it all ready to go. And so we show some yellows there in a couple of areas, primarily because now, come April of 2020, we will move out and we'll have performance plans all in this People Admin system. People will be trained up, will be ready to go. And we want to make sure we're using the tool to its full effectiveness and make sure that, a tool is a tool, and how you use it is what's so important. And so we're taking the time needed to do that, even though it means we didn't get it in place as fast as we want. We want to make sure we're using it fully. So so that is something that we're doing. Go back to
Jumped the gun. My apologies.
To the people one, and so that's something key. The other thing that employee engagement is Gallup survey. So I will talk a little bit more on that today, and won't hit it here. But we have reached the targets with our survey that we gave to the board that we were really focusing on there from an engagement standpoint. So so that's pretty exciting. So next, in the service arena, some of the key areas that I wanted to point out there is from a culture of service standpoint, we've been focused on really getting measures in place that'll move the needle. That if we are able to achieve these measures, that it'll make a difference for our campuses and it'll make a difference for our system. And so some of those that we've already started to put in place, legal really stepped up, and we said, hey, people are struggling with policy turnaround, so they have put in place a measure of 30-day turnaround for a policy for all policies, and they had a backlog, and they've already been able to work off that backlog. So they've stepped up, and I expect fully to really be hearing some positive things coming from the campuses with getting more of these metrics in place that really matter to our campuses and, again, to our systems, because it's important for us to get policy turnaround as well. So that's one example from a culture of service. From reviewing core and campus services, I talked about this before, but we're going to do external reviews of each of our service areas and then probably do that, I don't know, maybe every 3 years. We haven't decided on the cadence. So right now we're marching through each of our service areas, and you'll hear about the facility review today from Steve, but IT review is just wrapping up. Tomorrow we'll get that out brief at our Chancellor's Council, and so we'll be figuring out the right way to share that with all of you as part of tomorrow's review to make sure that we're communicating. And there's some key recommendations that we're coming up with. So that's pretty exciting. And then we'll be moving forward with the next set. And right now we're focused on internal audit and legal probably being the next set of reviews. And then we'll follow up probably with finance and HR a little later in the fall. So that's kind of how we're laying some of these external reviews out. And it's a positive thing. It's where sometimes, when it's only your eyes looking at something, you might miss things that others are doing out there. So we're looking kind of to get a fresh set of eyes and some fresh ideas in that we can move out on that'll really make a difference for us. So that's a positive thing from our external reviews perspective. And the other thing I wanted to point out here is in service improvements, I can tell you, and I think if you guys remember, my top priority was some of the things that we were doing in HR, especially around HRIS, about HR data. And so Barbara Abercrombie is just with her team really moved out on that. They've already completed the phase 1 projects that she prioritized, and that's things like I-9s and state service, getting that right in the system, onboard dates, getting those right in the system, even Social Security numbers. So there were some key areas that we really needed to clean up, and so she's completed all of those projects and moved on to phase 2, which will be more around a dashboard and being able to really see that well. So she's got a number of things in place, but I'm excited about the progress made already. And then finally, strength. Some of the things to point out in strength is where ERP, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So we're moving forward with looking at what our future ERP should be. We also have streamlining our policies and improving our policies. And so our Health Science Center is going to completely revamp all of their policies this year, very ambitious, and so our system as well. So we've been planning that. We're revamping our HR policies and which is the majority of our system policies. So that is a lot of work, but we're actively moving on that, and legal has really helped us there as well by really coming up with a real streamlined table of contents that we can use to streamline those policies. So that's some progress made there. I won't really hit all of these things today, but if there's any questions around any of these initiatives, I'd be happy to address those during the question time frame.
Absolutely. Towards the end, we have a couple microphones here in person. If you are watching on our live stream, you can submit a question to us by email at untsystemnews@untsystem.edu. So we'll come back to that here in a little bit. By show of hands in the room, who took the Gallup Employee Engagement Survey? Pretty good. You're engaged, you're here. We're excited to have you here, too. Lisa, let's give an update on Gallup. This is your first time going through the process with us, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, or is it your second?
No, second, because we was here last year when we did it.
That's right.
Certainly, there'll be more details on this. This is just a top-level report on the Gallup results that we have received. We had some things to point out. We had a dramatic increase in the participation at UNT Dallas. So I know Bob Mung really pushed and emphasized that. And so 47%, almost 48% increase in participation. So that's great.
I
And
think it was the communications team over there. that
probably
really
what
did a
might
good
have been
job
that
with
communications team.
I might be part of that team.
That might have been what happened. So, so that was really good. And with that, probably with that increase came some, a bit of a decline maybe in some of their engagement. But that's something that they'll go and focus and work on. We did have pretty dramatic increases in employee engagement at our Health Science Center. It went up 24%. I mean, almost 24% there. So that's pretty incredible results. And I know Mike Williams is very excited about that. But he's not relaxing. He knows I was just in his cabinet today where he was talking about some of the key things that they'll be doing moving forward. Our UNT system as well increased from an engagement standpoint, almost 13%, and so that's pretty exciting results too. But we've got more to do, and so we're going to continue to do that. This is just a graphical view of that, where Health Science Center is leading from 57% engaged employees, and system is 53%. So that's good news, and but the other news is we need to work on those yellow and red bars as well. So we'll be doing that. So our next steps on Gallup is to get the results out. So June 17th, HR will be ready to go and posting the data out there. It will be where you'll need to log in to the system to be able to get to that data and see it.
Our portal system.
Those reports. Supervisors that have 4 employees or more will be able to get data down to that level, so they'll really truly be able to focus on where they can work on improving and where we have opportunities to improve. So the other thing is HR, when in posting that, are going to have proposed a guide on really how to interpret the results, and they're going to give a lot of helpful tools around that. They also would like to, if you like, they can come out and brief your results to really kind of help explain that. So that's something they've offered. And for the first time ever, they're offering this fall organizational development. So for those folks that would really like to engage and get that help, that's a new service that HR is really pushing to help with this fall. So a lot of exciting things to help us move forward. I mean, we're pleased with the results, but we want to do even better. So that's what we'll be focusing on in the fall.
And you came from a culture at NASA that was consistently a best place to work in the federal government. How was that sustained once you reached that point? How did you guys sustain that?
Yeah, you don't relax. I mean, it's something that you're always focused on. It's really, really important for our culture, for really having engaged employees, folks retaining employees. All of that is kind of fundamental, and so it's something that we're going to always be focused on and keep moving forward with.
Fantastic. Well, next topic is a complicated one, our Enterprise Resource Planning System, or ERP. You've kind of taken lead on that project now moving forward. How are we doing there?
Yeah, so ERP is something that Gary Rolfs was leading when he was here. It's a campus-wide, I mean, it's across all campuses. There's representation on this. We've also engaged a consultant, which is ISG, to come in and really help us evaluate tools that are out there and decide how we should move forward. They helped us and work with this team develop our requirements, and those requirements are, of course, in finance, in human capital, and in student administration. And so they help us develop our RFP. The RFP has already gone out. Also assessed our business processes and the things that we need to do there from an evaluation standpoint. And we've already received back RFP results, and we're not yet ready for anything like contract negotiations, but we have started moving forward with some cost analysis around the RFPs that are coming in. So next slide. This is the team. Again, it's at all of our campuses have representation. It's a pretty critical effort in really looking at what our ERP should be moving forward. And we've given ourselves enough time to really take the time we need and be very thoughtful about this evaluation, and so that's been key as well. Next slide. That's the timeline you can see there. Of course, as I mentioned, the RFP is already, we've already received proposals. We are now actively evaluating those proposals. We'll have vendors come in and do demos this summer. So a lot is going on there, and the whole team will be participating in that. And at the same time, we've started doing a readiness survey. Are we ready for whatever ERP we decide to move forward with? And also focus on implementation planning, because bringing a tool in, almost like I was saying with people admin, is one thing, but it's going to be a long effort to actually move forward, depending on which thing we pick. And so, and understanding the cost and the impact of that is fundamental before you make any decisions on where you're going to go. And so that's all the work ahead of us to do this summer and maybe even into the fall here. So next steps are listed there. I went through some of those. I don't think there's anything I didn't hit there. So, of course, if there's any questions, we can talk through those. But Barbara Abercrombie is stepping up and leading that team. She was a member of that team when Gary was here, and now she's stepping up and leading it through the summer. And James Malden has been added to that team from a CFO perspective.
So next topic, our brand study, which has been in the news a little bit, or has been in the news for not being in the news. We'll talk about that maybe a little bit. We had a question somebody submitted, but maybe I'll start this one off just because I'm personally involved in our brand study, and we actually tomorrow will be doing a training here at UNT in the morning. It will be marketing and communications folks from all of our institutions. Will be meeting with Carnegie Dartlet, our agency. And in the afternoon, the marketing and communications folks will be helping with training of executives and deans and people from all across UNT world. So we're pretty excited about that. And what this was a research-based study that Carnegie Dartlet came to all of our campuses. They talked to students, they talked to faculty, they talked to staff, alumni. They talked to people at other places as well. And really what they came to are what we call archetypes in their system. And there are some common threads, but everybody's a little bit different. So you look at UNT, their three dominant trends were inventive artisan, determined contender, and dedicated provider. I think that felt fitting and felt at home for us with UNT. At the Health Science Center, innovation, no surprise, lots of great research happening there. You talked about the funding that was just received in the DNA space. Innovation was their lead, and again, determined contender was a theme that showed up everywhere, including system administration, throughout all of the research. And then UNT Dallas, determined contender was their top trait, but what we thought was kind of neat on the UNT Dallas side of the house was the fearless rebel, that they're doing things a little bit different over there, and I know they embraced that. So, Lisa, my question for you is... I
think it's because there was a pirate.
That's right. That's right. What did you think about the process as you were involved in it, and you spent time with Carnegie Dartlet, and do you think that they hit the mark and that we've got tools to do a better job of telling our stories moving forward?
Yeah, no, I think they did from, and I think each of the presidents, because I personally ask each one, do you think this is right? This is the right story around our brand. And so every president really did. They really thought that made sense. But there's a lot of work in front of us still around branding. And as you said, Paul, there's training, but it's really, it'll be training. The training will move down the chain really from a standpoint of us being able to tell our story. So there's work on the story in front of us around our brand, and we want to really be able to tell it and relate it to the different areas. Even within one of our universities, we have to be able to tell the story, because the story, the personality is there, but it differs as you go into each of the different colleges and different areas. And so that's the work in front of us with some of this brand work, and I think it's really exciting.
And it was so extensive. Part of it was not only talking to people, but they also took all of our collateral pieces, our marketing pieces, our commercials, our radio ads, and they analyzed that and kind of placed that against the themes that they found for each of our universities. And it was really a thorough process and impressive.
Yeah, it really was. So, and I did want to stay too, tomorrow when we're doing some of this training, it'll be our system administration as well, because we're all really engaged in the story and being able to move forward with this branding. All of us get opportunities to talk to people outside and really tell our story, and so we want to help us all be better tellers of our brand, and I think that's really important going forward.
Yeah, and the leaders that participate will take that into their teams, and it'll trickle down throughout the organization. Exciting stuff. Well, Lisa, we'll give you a break if you want to have some water or anything. Now's a good time. Steve, we're going to move to you. I've got your name spelled out phonetically on here so I don't screw that up. Marashevsky. Everybody get that? Marashevsky. Let's get into your portion. I'm going to give you the clicker to talk about some things you've been doing on the review side of the house for facilities. So here you go.
Thank you. So I just want to go over a little bit of the whirlwind I've been on since I've been here before I get started. I started back in January, and within 2 weeks I was presenting to the Board of Regents, and within 2 months I was actively engaged in reviewing a workforce that I didn't really even know yet. So it's been a challenge, and at the same time, just the way things align, had to establish next year's budget around where we were headed, not yet knowing where we were headed, leading to being here today to talk about my findings. So part of the whirlwind was self-imposed. I asked Chancellor Rowe if I could do a preliminary review of our organization by myself before engaging others to help me, and I thought it would be a good way to really get to know the organization and really dig in deep, and it was very fruitful, and I'm very glad I did it, but I also now know what I don't know. So I've hired some folks to assist, to fill in the blanks, and what I'm going to go over today is my preliminary findings, and what I've done is brought these folks in, a series of experts, folks that I know from around the country and have worked with in the past, to basically validate some of the things I came up with, or invalidate, if that happens to be the case, put meat on the bones and help us to provide a strategic path forward.
You have some of these folks in town right now, right?
And some of them are,
in the room.
And it scares me to death that they're near the microphone. But
welcome, guests.
So this is the list of the folks that I have here. I started my review by really spending a lot of time trying to meet as many people as I could around the different organizations, and I didn't get as far as I could, but these are some of the folks I met with to get an understanding of past performance and also desired service levels moving forward. These are just a few of the themes. This whole presentation is an abbreviated version of my findings, but I think you get the context of what we came up with, or what I came up with. These were the key themes that I heard repeatedly. Expanded real estate services was a desired service that was required at all locations. An increased sense of urgency across the board. And I think that probably applies to virtually everybody, but I could see it, and I'll go into why maybe that wasn't occurring. An enhanced overall space planning, streamlining our processes. We could all say that, probably. And then the big one was increased collaboration and transparency, specifically on capital projects. So these were some of the key themes that I heard. Some of my personal observations were that some of our approaches could be a little more strategic. We could use more data in our decision-making processes. Our campus and our system facilities organizations could be better integrated. Our real estate functions were mostly transactional, and they could be a little more strategic. And then a big one, which is maybe a buzzword, but it's important. We could incorporate more total cost of ownership in our decisions in our projects. And I apologize for the non-facilities folks if I'm boring you, but this is what we find interesting.
Well, I have a question for you on your slides. You talk about data to make decisions. What type of data?
I'll get into that as we go forward. All kinds of
data. Jump the gun.
All kinds of data. I mean, the world is run by data these days, and it's really important if you're not capturing data to inform your decisions. And I'll go into some of the specifics. Thank you, though. Other observations. The market's pretty saturated. We weren't getting the A teams from our service providers. and some of our facility staff are not connected to our university missions. I'm not going to go through all these, but from a good news standpoint, we have a really strong and talented staff across our different organizations. So we have a really good base who have done some really amazing things, especially given some of the limitations. And UNT is really well positioned in the marketplace, so there's no reason why we shouldn't be getting the best of the best to provide the services that we desire here. So there's lots of optimism looking forward. Some of the challenges I observed one was that our service offerings don't necessarily align, and when I say that, our system service offerings from the facilities office don't fully align with what the customers need or expect. So we're a little disconnected, and I think we could do better in that area. And this next one may have been what impacted the sense of urgency issue. There has been an incredible workload with the past success in tuition revenue bond funded projects. It's taken a toll on the workforce, and you can see it. They're a little weary, and we have to, acknowledge that and address some of that. The local construction market is fairly saturated. The cranes are everywhere, and that's a challenge to make sure we get the right providers and the right people. And there's a little bit of lack of clarity for future volume in terms of we just learned that we're not going to get more tuition revenue bond funded projects this year, so that presents a challenge to our workforce. I'm going to go over some really high-level recommendations, and my colleagues will say, well, gee, I could have told you that without doing anything, but hopefully they're going to add more meat to these bones as we go through. Planning. Bolstering the planning process from soup to nuts will provide a lot of benefits. I mean, it's fairly well known that the majority of the cost savings are up front. If you don't plan appropriately, it's hard to capture the efficiencies as you go. So across the board, just improving our planning process. Starts with being more strategic on our projects, and this goes to the data. So performing more comprehensive facilities assessments, understanding the condition of our facilities, and using that information to inform our decision-making process by connecting it to our strategic plans and our unit level plans before we decide on what we're going to build and what goes into our capital plans. So doing that in a more thoughtful way. From a maintenance and operations standpoint, again, the data serves a great function. Those facility assessments I just mentioned, use those to inform the strategies for doing your maintenance in terms of what you work on and what you don't work on. Increase our preventative and proactive, and actually head toward more of a reliability-based maintenance approach. That's a big lift, and a lot of people are trying to do it. It takes a real effort and a real commitment. Our folks are doing incredibly well right now, and I know they want to do this, but it would take a commitment by all of us to make that happen. And then create mechanisms. I think this is one of the opportunities that the system has, to identify the areas of expertise across all the different locations and bring that to bear at each of the individual locations. From a real estate and development standpoint, enhancing our skills to be more strategic, do less transactional and more strategic decision-making. And that requires gaining a better understanding of the local market, understanding the developers, the drivers in the market, where our potential partnerships are, and then employing perhaps public-private partnerships in select areas where it makes sense. And I just listed a few on the slide that are under conversation. This becomes more important now that we know we're not getting tuition revenue bonds, so it's a source of funding, not your ideal one, but it's an alternative in order to keep developing and providing the facilities we need at the different locations. Design and construction, these are mostly tactical. Increase our understanding and empathy for the different institutions' needs and the challenges. Connecting better with the operating and maintenance groups at the different institutions so that they're inheriting projects that are well thought out and more easily maintained. Establish common contracting and accounting practices that can be shared, and just developing an integrated team and sharing and optimizing resources at all locations. I'm almost done. Pretty much could all been summed up with this slide. In general, establish comprehensive integrated approach to facilities management. It's a sophisticated thing, and to do it right, you need to be fully integrated and connect all the dots throughout the organization. It's not just facilities, it's connecting to academia and all the other aspects of the institution. If you do it successfully, your facilities really contribute to the learning environment and contribute to the success of the institution. Some lower level things are implementing lean practices to make sure our processes are contemporarily relevant. Matching our service offerings, I mentioned this a few times, to the campus missions and the philosophies, and developing strategies to leverage best practices at all locations. The big animal and the hardest thing to do is, now that we know where we're headed, or we're closer to knowing where we're headed, is reorganizing our organization to align with the final recommendations that will be made once I receive the feedback from the team and we collectively decide where we want to go. That's pretty much it.
Fantastic.
Over-
Well,
back over to you.
hang on to the
Oh,
clicker
that's
for
right.
just a second, because I
So
just
he
have...
does great work for just 2 weeks or whatever it was.
Yeah. Well, so the recent board meeting, Steve, UNT, you with Bob Brown unveiled some things related to UNT at Frisco, and one of the questions that were submitted to us by email, which I'll go into now. And by the way, if anybody here has a question, feel free to walk up to the microphones and ask. Otherwise, I'll ask questions that were sent to us. But the first one was about UNT at Frisco and the timeline related to that. So I think you might have a couple slides to share.
Sure. It's not like I didn't know this question was coming, right? So this is the fun stuff we get to do. This is the exciting stuff. So we're actually, for those, I'm going to go backwards a little bit and get to the answer to the question. We're actually building a new campus. Now, how many times do you get to be part of that? That's a pretty exciting thing. And it's in the city of Frisco. And it's a partnership with the city of Frisco, where they provided us with 50 acres of land to be followed by another 50 acres, which is currently a green site. So we're starting from scratch. We hired Air St. Gross to do the master planning, and they came up with a strategy that shows that on that 100-acre site, we could actually provide facilities to support up to 20,000 students at some time in the distant future. So it's really exciting opportunity to be at the ground floor of a new initiative. The first phase is highlighted there, and it's just going to be a single new building with infrastructure, roadways, and a parking infrastructure to support and provide access to the new facility. And this is an example of a rendering of what it could look like. It's, by the time we're done, it won't look like this, but it'll be similar in nature to this. Gives you an idea what could happen. Again, very fun. You get to look at what could happen and actually work your way toward seeing what does happen. So to answer your question now, Paul.
Phone's ringing. Apologize.
That's okay.
Should have said turn off your cell phones. That's always in our board meeting script.
It's one of my staff probably. So we had an initial schedule, and this is because this is such an exciting opportunity, everybody's in a hurry to get there. So we're looking at every opportunity to accelerate this project, but we want to do it prudently. And we think we've come up with, so far, our latest proposed project schedule has us being ready for spring semester 2022. That'll be when the first building is open for business, we hope.
Fantastic. And just to share, if you're looking for more information on UNT at Frisco, Lisa and I last week on our podcast interviewed a couple of the leaders there, the dean, Wesley Randall, and Alan Clark, who actually wrote a paper that helped lead to the formation of UNT at Frisco. And they really shared with us some of the programmatic elements that are really fascinating. Lisa, if you wanted to comment on our conversation. No,
it's just, well, the podcast captures some of it, but just going out and visiting, we went out and toured and visited. It was incredible. I call it our skunk works because of the work going on there is unique and different and exciting. And it's really thinking about the future and what's needed. And what was also incredible is everybody in the room, while I was getting that briefing from Dean Randall around, it was K through 12, Frisco ISD was there. It was Collin County Community College. It was all the businesses were there. and then the city itself. And I went around they went around the room and told me why it was important that we were there. And everyone, it was heartfelt. We are a key part of Frisco, and that was pretty exciting to see. And so, I highly encourage you, listen to the podcast, but if you can get a chance, get out there and see some of the things going on. It's a beautiful land as well. So, and they're working on an outside element of it that the city wants as well. So I think it's going to be new and fun and different, and we should all be very, very proud to have this a part of our UNT World future.
That's very exciting, very exciting. Well, if nobody has any other questions, I'll keep rolling through things that were submitted to us by email. Lisa, this one came from someone at UNT, and I'm just going to kind of read it word for word. Hiring top flight faculty at UNT demands that faculty salaries be competitive, and that also demands issues of salary compression to be addressed. What short and long-term strategies are being enacted to address these problems?
Yes, sure. So that was from UNT. What I didn't mention when I was talking about, when I was going through our system strategy, certainly compensation comes up quite a bit. It's come up in past town halls as well. That compensation, we're doing a study from a system administration standpoint, including administrative staff, and factoring in administrative staff at the campuses as part of that, because you have it where you want to make sure you're thinking about that when you do the study in like jobs across campus and system. So Barbara Abercrombie is on that. That should complete by December of this year, and then we'll work to implement that and figure out how we're going to move forward with the results that we get back in 2020. So that's the things going on from a system perspective. The question was around UNT, and I can tell you President Smotrisk and Provost Cowley are actively thinking about that all the time. A market study is done every 3 years. They have addressed salary shortfalls from where they found those areas, and I think librarians recently. So they're actively looking at that, and for those areas that where their challenges come up between between when the study is done, they're also working to address that. So I have made sure that the president knows once again that this was a question asked, and so he'll be bringing that up and talking through how that works again as part of his town halls and conversations and state of the university, et cetera. So I know it's top of mind, but they have a great strategy and a way they've approached it, and so I think they're addressing it, and feel free to ask more questions about it.
Another question that we received from UNT, a UNT person, said, and it was related to collaboration, and it said, what strategies and tactics are being developed to change roadblocks that exist across our institutional culture at UNT that inhibit real inter- and transdisciplinary research, scholarship, and teaching? So, collaboration.
So, collaborative research, interdisciplinary research are key focus, key initiative in the strategy that President Smotrisk has been focused on and working on. I know you'll see that as part of what comes out in this year as he rolls out the strategy. He's working in all ways to make that a part of what they do in research, and that collaboration is fundamental to it, and also working across universities from a collaborative standpoint. So that's something. And translational research, that was the word translational research as well. So that's actively going on, and his quote was, the only thing that will get in the way of that is desire by the individual researcher. And so the point is, it's something that he is highly emphasizing and really wants going forward. As far as from a teaching standpoint and collaborative teaching, I think that's something where he talks about it as being a bit more challenging. But I would recommend that if people have some ideas on how to make that happen, I'd say bring them forward. The president is encouraging that and would certainly listen to that and try to figure out ways they could make even teaching more collaborative as well.
Thank you. We have a question from the audience. Feel free to move that mic as needed.
Yeah, sorry, I'm really short. My name is Anam Iqbal, and I'm an assistant director of freshman recruitment at UNT. And my question is for Chancellor Rowe. So when we talked about the Gallup survey earlier, I noticed that as the flagship, we are declining in engagement. So do you have any thoughts on how we can get this campus engaged again?
Yeah, so that's something I know the president has been very focused on. He wants to get the data and start working through that. I know there was a concern around survey fatigue this year because there was a culture survey done. There was a number of things that were all happening at one time. So that was something that worried him. But nonetheless, it's really important data. And so what we can do is they'll take that and he'll work on laying out a plan to really move forward and get people more engaged by really looking at the different questions, which are some of the questions that scored the lowest, and try to dive into why. We'll also get, this time, by getting the lower level of data, you can start to see maybe where some of the areas, and then start to really pinpoint maybe what some of the issues are that you could find ways to work through. So I think that's really going to be important as well. And then there was the open-ended questions. There were 3 open-ended questions this time that are going to give us some data, really important data too. And Barbara's been working to get analytics around that to try to help us see what that is telling us too. So it may be something that's completely unexpected, right? So that's something that that we'll have going forward. So I don't know if I don't have the specific answer because we haven't. June 17th, we'll get the more detailed data that we can start to really dive in and figure out. Okay, now what's our next steps? What can we do to make a difference and really improve engagement? And I'll be doing that. That's not just at UNT. Certainly, System Administration, our Health Science Center, and Dallas will all be working on that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jackie Walker. I'm a lecturer in the English department, and this is a facilities question. One of the things that we're seeing as we are gaining more faculty and whatnot, there are some of our buildings where we have some people amongst, say, like languages and some other areas where we have lecturers and some professors sharing offices, which is a disadvantage for the privacy of students and also servicing students. Can you speak to, can we see some changes in some upgrades maybe in some of the buildings, like the building that I'm in is the language building, that probably needs to be upgraded, and maybe if it were redesigned, we could serve more people and have more offices so that we can better serve our students.
So I wish I could answer your specific question, but I don't know that level of detail. But one of the things that I emphasized in the slides is putting a stronger focus on space management, which would address those types of things, but it would be more broad and eventually get down to specifics. I don't have a specific answer for your question, but hopefully as we put more of a focus on managing the space, not just capturing who's in what space, but actually managing it more effectively across all of our locations, we would find acceptable solutions everywhere. I don't know, Dave, do you know if there are specific, I don't want to put you on the spot, but. Right, yeah. Yeah, so it's a generic answer. I can't give you a specific answer, but we're hoping to get wrap our hands around that. All locations, all things.
So we are streaming, so try to repeat what yeah.
So the question was, is there anything I can do to, that you can do to increase the immediacy? I think, it starts by making the right people aware, and then it works its way up through. So, I'm not sure what the chain would be. Dave, if you have a suggestion, would be helpful.
Yeah, I do. Are you going to be up through your dean to put in a request for modification of space there in the language building? I can tell you, I have not seen, and I'm going to look for at least one of my people in the crowd. Is Helen in the crowd? Nope. So I was going to say, I have not seen a request for any modifications of space in the language building. I have seen some others that have come in other departments here recently, but referring back to Steve's slide about making early strategic decisions. So if you're going to expand staff, you're going to expand faculty, It takes a long time to build and modify facilities. You really need to let facilities know really early that you're expanding staff and faculty. Otherwise, we're behind the power curve. And since we don't know about your requirement right now, we're behind the power curve.
Sir.
My name is Kevin Yanowski. I'm the catalog management librarian here at UNT, also current secretary of Faculty Senate and soon to be vice chair of Faculty Senate. And one thing I've heard come up from the faculty is that with, we're doing a lot of expanding in Frisco, a lot of business partnerships, all sorts of stuff, that there's at least the thought that we're moving too far away from academics and teaching. And potentially, and that some of these things are being affected by some of the other more corporate type of activities done here, both at UNT system, things like that. And this has just been talked about. There's no specific examples per se, but I was just going to pass this along in the fact of, do you see this as a thing that is shifting away from academics in various ways? Is this just sort of lack of communication, people not getting the right information at the right times, or some things like that? I was just getting, on behalf of the faculty, sort of getting your thoughts on that.
So I don't think that's the case, but I think we'd probably have to talk to the faculty and understand why that perception is there.
Right.
I think academics may be done differently. I mean, I know there's different, certainly Adam Fine's come in, he's been focused on online and how we do some things. So how we do provide academics might be certainly something changing and different, and because we see the world changing, right? And we can provide to more people in different ways and reach people differently, but it's still academics, I think. So I think we should probably get more at, why is that coming up? What's happening there? And then we can try to figure out, is that a problem area? And we had an unintentional consequence of something we were doing, right? So I think that's probably what we should do is maybe, I can ask, President Smotrisk or whatever, or even I can come in and hear more about what's happening there and why that's coming up.
One of the interesting things we talked about with Dean Randall at UNT at Frisco was that his vision and the vision as we understood it in our conversation at UNT Frisco is very intertwined with the business community and perhaps less traditional from an academic standpoint, whereas it would seem that the idea would be more traditional generally. Obviously, there's a much larger offering on the main campus, but that was one of the subjects we talked about.
That's true. And in looking at combining things, a lot of hybrid type, not kind of maybe some of the classic things, but because there was the need, because they were hearing very clearly from industry that they needed workforce that had knowledge in this and this, right? And so kind of merging and doing some things differently. So that could be why it's coming up, but we should talk more about that. So thanks for bringing it up.
So here is a question that's sort of a spin-off of one of the topics we hit on. It's related to Carnegie Dartlet and the brand study, which I'm happy to take a stab at answering. It's when will UNT publicly release the results of the brand audit that was conducted on our behalf by Carnegie Dartlet last year? More crucially, why is this information being suppressed? So the first thing I would say is the study is an ongoing study. It has not concluded. We're still working through things with our partner. And so UNT and all three of our campuses are still conducting the brand studies, and we'll determine how information is released once the study is complete and trainings are complete. Our institutions wanted to hold the brand study processes and initial actions confidential because we did not want to disclose trade secrets within the competitive industry of higher ed. Our universities compete with other universities for students and research dollars, and prematurely sharing that branding or message strategies could provide competition advantages to other universities that were trying to fight for students against. And on the same side, Carnegie Dartlet also had some processes that they consider their property and proprietary, and they also played a role in that. But I think, we shared just today some of the brand study. We're doing a training with more than 100 people tomorrow. I don't think that anybody wants to keep things a secret. It's our brand. It's what we're going to be publicly conveying. It's simply how we're going about things at the front end of the process. Good.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, Steve, this is one that is specific to UNT, but I think you helped us track down an answer. Will the road UNT Circle on campus in Denton be repaved or repaired? It has huge potholes and it's messing up our cars.
So no is not a good answer, right? So I am told that it will at some point be repaired. There's an ongoing discussion with the city in terms of development changes that might occur, and once those decisions are made, there'll be movement. I have no idea when that will be, but the plan is to upgrade it when those decisions are made.
Thank you. Lisa, this is one for you, and say hello to anybody in Fort Worth that's viewing the live stream because it's a Fort Worth related question. What is the latest news related to UNT Health Science Center's new MD school with TCU?
Okay, good. Well, it's an exciting time. We're going to have students on the ground starting this summer. So we're really excited about that. I know the president's really excited to be moving forward that. So students are going to be taking classes at our IREB, which is our Interdisciplinary Research and Education building. It's a brand new health science center building, and so students will be taking classes there and at TCU. We have faculty that have now, that are on board and ready to go, and the curriculum is new and different, where we're very focused on patient-centered, team-based, value-based training. Emotional intelligence is woven in, and really the focus is on the patient. So it's it's exciting, and so we're moving forward. And like I said, first students start this summer, so we're pretty excited.
Absolutely. This next one, I can probably.
I should say something else too. I'd forgotten to mention a part of that, and we're also excited too because President Williams, due to his, extensive work there, we have, about over 600 new residency slots that will be having over the next couple of years. So that's pretty exciting as well. So just it's a great time.
The physician shortage that we have in these parts.
Yeah,
right?
that'll keep where you do your residency is where folks will stay, and so it's so important to have residencies in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and so I'm extremely proud of that. Extremely proud of all the work that's been done there. And it's just really exciting.
So the next one is a UNT Dallas question that probably I'm most well equipped to answer. UNT Dallas filed a bill related to athletics in the recent legislative sessions. When will UNT Dallas start playing intercollegiate athletics, and at what level? So there was a bill that was passed, and I talked to Bob Mong yesterday, and it is awaiting signature from Governor Abbott. Assuming that the bill gets signed, the next step would be a student vote. If the students vote to have intercollegiate athletics and have a fee that supports that, then they would move forward with teams that would compete at the NAIA level initially, which has some looser restrictions and lower initial financial commitments than the NCAA. But I know Bob, as a NCAA Division III athlete, loves that model as well and would love to explore that, but I think step by step. Steve, I've got another one for you that is very specific related to UNT. Now that the CVAD construction is complete, will Lot 50 remain a mix of Permit A and FS, faculty staff parking permits? That's the first part of the question. So will Lot 50 remain a mix of Pass A and FS? Very specific.
So facilities folks love parking because nobody has more complaints, I think, So it will be in a designated lot now that it's completed.
Part two of the question, if so, will the Union Circle garage still include faculty staff permits?
Yes, the garage will have faculty staff permits on levels 2 and 3.
Got it. I've got one question that was sent to me by email that I'm going to get from my phone. If we don't have any other questions, feel free to come up if you have a question. Otherwise, this will be our last one. And it relates to re-engineering our sick leave process, and I'm trying to find the email that was sent because it was very, very specific, related to basically when somebody may have a serious illness or a family situation, if they use their sick leave, they're often coming back and not having any leave to follow up and maybe go to the doctor or do whatever things are needed. Have we considered re-engineering our donation process of sick leave?
So as I mentioned, we are relooking at our all of our HR policies over the course of this calendar year, and so that's certainly something we can go and look at. I know what we're doing today is in line with with our current policies and probably current state regulations, but it's something that if it's really important, it's something that we can go and can look at whether we can change there. So
that's one of the things you'll see with our chancellor is we're continually looking within and looking at ourselves and trying to get better. That's generally what we've brought. It looks like we've got one more question, so we're not going to wrap up just yet.
yeah, I mean we didn't.
I'm keeping everybody here a little longer.
Thanks for coming.
First of all, I just want to say that I am extremely grateful and proud to be a part of the Mean Green. However, I do have a question about the budget on campus. It seems like there is a little bit of a gross miscalculation of the way funds are dispersed to each department. Some funds have treadmill desks and standing desks, and they always have money. But other departments that are constantly in a deficit have desks that are falling apart, chairs that are falling apart, and their department doesn't look up to par with the rest of the university. And this seems like it is creating a dissension between departments on this campus. And it almost seems like the student first is not our mentality. It's, well, what do they have? What do we have? It's their fault. It's our fault. And I'm just wondering, what do you think can be done to solve these budget imbalances and the brewing dissension?
I think I'm going to have to take that one back to President Smotrisk and talk about it, because I don't know how the budgets are distributed at UNT, and so that's something I'll take back to Bob Brown and Neil and see how they could address that. So we'll take that and bring that back. How's that? Get them to respond.
Of course, I mean, that would be fantastic. And thank you so much for being here.
Oh, absolutely.
And any questions that are submitted to us that we didn't get to today, we'll respond to those in email. They'll come to UNT System News at untsystem.edu, and we'll forward them along to the appropriate person, whether it's the chancellor, Steve, or somebody else involved in the organization. We have any other questions? Well, thank you so much. Oh, we got one more? All right. I thought maybe you were just trying to get out the door quick.
Beat the crowd, yeah.
One last one. I assume that maintaining R1 status is still a high priority for UNT, but as a faculty member, I think we have a hard time attracting the best graduate students as long as our stipends and graduate student tuition scholarships are below par and not comparable to other R1 universities. I've heard a lot of initiatives here for new things going on. What are you doing to address this sort of fundamental element of maintaining and improving our R1 status? So.
Okay, that one I'm going to have to take back as well, because it is a top priority to maintain R1 status, and we just got revalidation of R1 status in November, I think it was, and so absolutely we'll have to go look if there is a shortfall, what's happening there. So we'll take that one back as well. So thank you for bringing it up.
Anybody else? Well, all right, thank you everybody that watched online. Thank you for coming here to UNT
for
and
coming
Denton.
out.
Thank you to UNT for having us today, and thank you to Chancellor Rowe and Steve for their insights. We appreciate it, everybody. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul.